You got the call. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. Welcome back to the call up presented by Triple Play Fantasy. Vinny, my man, it's been a while. How's it going?
It's definitely been a while. Computer problems to start off here, other technical difficulties. Nothing's going to stop us though, so we're going to keep on rolling. So.
Yeah, very observant watchers of us might realize that Vinny is rolling with his PlayStation headset in mic, and that's the result of technical difficulties, but we persevere. It's been way too long since we've been able to bring you guys some hard-hitting prospect analysis, and I think we've got some good plans now, Vinny. I think we're going to get more into the rhythm now, start putting out shows more frequently. But we're starting off with a bang. I think this is my vibe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But from my perspective, it seems like this might be your favorite show. You're always talking about the Breakout show, and we're doing today our 2024 Breakouts. I don't want to put the graphic up too long because it kind of spoils a couple of Vinny's guys. But Vinny, how excited are you to be talking Breakouts?
I'm very excited. This was actually my first ever show, part of the Triple Play Fantasy crew last year, almost to the date. I think we're just a couple days off. But yeah, I love throwing out these predictions and then pulling the receipts when I hit, and then forgetting about them when I don't hit. So
I feel like that separates you from a lot of analysts. I feel like a lot of people really don't actually like to make predictions, and when they do, they like to make hot takes because then they can just say, "Oh, it was a hot take. Even I knew it was unlikely." But you like to put it out there and then pull up receipts. Before we get to those receipts, Vinny, I just want to say, with this being the off season, we're going to try and change things up a little bit here. We're going to use it as a time to try and improve. So one of our goals is we're going to try and make this conversation and the episodes more casual and just kind of see where the conversation takes us instead of sticking to such a rigid format. But Vinny, since you brought up receipts, let's get right into our first item. Let's talk about your breakouts from last year, your 2023 breakouts. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the slide. Here's the receipts, Vinny. Why don't you walk us through?
Yeah, starting off with a big one, Jonathan Class A. He had a really hot 2022. Didn't show that much of a contact ability, just the ability to hit the baseball. He showed big power and speed, which I think he had like 40 plus stolen bases and 20 home runs or something like that. Something to the point where it was to the point where people should have been talking about him more, I believe. Started off this year really hot. He made the jump all the way to AA and then completely fizzled out, but that doesn't neglect a trip to the futures game. And I think he might even be he's inside some top 100s too. So we've really seen the ascension of Class A. DePaula is another one of these guys that if you were looking at his DSL numbers last year, you're like, wow, why isn't Josue De La Paula getting more rave? And then it started to trickle out towards December, early January, right when we started getting around to drafts and the Welsh's P180P and stuff like that. But DePaula, a very big 18-year-old, at the time 17-year-old in the Dominican Summer League, pushing 6'3", maybe 190, 200 pounds, plus hitter, plus power, and then you're looking pretty much just solid tools all around, a corner outfielder, probably 10, 15 stolen bases a year.
Vinny,
maybe even less.
Sorry. I was going to say, before you continue, I was thinking that these first two guys, these were maybe two of your best calls here. Let me pull the graphic back up. Jonathan Class A and I can't say his name. De Paula Josue
Josue de la Paula.
Josue de la Paula. I'm just pulling him up as you're talking about him on Fangraphs, and right now I always say that Fantrax. They really shouldn't have gone with such similar names. I'm pulling them up on Fantrax. Fangraphs is where you go when you want good stats. Fantrax is where I go when I want a just quick single number that can tell me how the fantasy community is valuing them, and that's their roster percentage. I noticed that De La Paula is rostered in 40% of leagues, and Class A is rostered in only 33% of leagues, which seems quite low to me, especially for someone who had such a strong breakout. I am curious then, how about as we're going through this list, you let us know which guys you think are still being undervalued, which guys are now overvalued, because part of what a breakout is picking a player that we think's value will increase. And sometimes that increase is more unwarranted than even we expect it to be. So are they being overvalued, undervalued, or was it just a complete whiff on you? So let's get back into the list. Starting with, let's go back to Class A. You don't have to give me your analysis on him again. But would you say still undervalued? That 33% roster number on Fantrax?
It would be, I don't know how far back you can see his roster numbers, but I would guess probably until like June he was easily over 60% owned, just because of how hot he was at Everett. And then, like I said, he got up to AA and the strikeouts came and knocked him out. So there's a potential that he could be undervalued, I believe, because he's putting up similar stats that I called the breakout for. Like, we're seeing big speed, big power, a lot of strikeouts, but it is more advanced pitching. I don't know if he could take a step forward in AAA or if he repeats next year at AA. So I'm going to say he's probably perfectly ranked a little, but I lean a little bit towards underranked.
All right, maybe a little underranked, 33%, down from a probable peak because of strikeouts. What about De Paula? 40% roster.
40%? I think that is way undervalued. The bat and the projection alone is phenomenal. We're talking like Baby Jordan, which that nickname's getting thrown around so much that you can't even really take legitimacy to it. But yeah, I would expect as we get closer to the season, he should be probably around the 75-80% mark of being rostered.
You would give De Paula that nickname of Baby Jordan over, I forget, I'm blanking on his name, but that
Lazaro Montes.
Yes. Who would you, if you had to pick one, who would it be?
I would have to go Montes, just because we saw crazy power from him this year. We've not seen the crazy amount of power yet from De Paula, but after next season, I could be saying something completely different. I could totally switch my view.
I think Montez was the moment, Vinny, that I knew that you were on a different level when it came to prospect analysis than many of the guys out there. I mean, it was almost like you manifested the Montez power breakout. It was like you mentioned him, and then he went on that crazy tear, and everyone was talking about him.
Yeah, it's crazy because usually whenever I start like banging the drum for someone, I have to see footage of it. And I saw him hit, I think it was his first home run maybe in the Cal League, and just the amount of just power he showed in just that at bat was unbelievable. Like, we knew he had 60 plus raw power, something like that, coming out of the J15 class, but against the level of pitching that he was seeing, and for him to do that to a baseball was unfathomable.
Well, Montez is not a guy on this list, but it's a reason for people to continue to listen to us throughout the year. Yes, we give you our top breakouts in the moment here, but throughout the year, there are other guys that we start to see where we're predicting breakouts. Montez is a guy that Vinny absolutely nailed. You would have been on him before anyone else in your league. And even if you didn't even like him as much as maybe Vinny did, you would have been able to sell him for like I mean, I don't know the ratio, but he went up quite a bit. Let's speed run through this list here, Vinny, because I don't want to spend too much time on the 2023 breakouts. Nelson Rada, a guy I know you're still a big fan of. What are your thoughts? Still undervalued a little bit. He's 21% rostered.
Still severely underrated. We're talking about a kid that spent most of the 2023 season as a 17-year-old in low A, putting up a 300 plus BABIP, a 300 plus OBP slug and WOBA, 113 WRC plus, and just to sprinkle on top of it, 55 stolen bases. The body is still nowhere near done growing and filling out. Like, we could see this guy potentially be a 280, 20, like easily a 20, like 40 type of guy when everything's done. The Angels is a sketchy organization, but there's so much raw talent in Rada that it's hard not to roster him. So yeah, so severely underrated. I believe if he takes the step forward, he is one of these guys that is solidified inside the top 50, maybe even higher. Like, the upside's monstrous for him.
I'm confident saying these first guys that we've talked about, all absolute hits. You knocked it out of the park with all three, calling for the breakout. I'm not so sure about this fourth guy, Yaison Morabel, outfielder of the Texas Rangers. What do you think, Vinny? Would you say was this your first miss?
I'm not going to call it a miss just because he got hurt so early in the season. He only played 30 games.
Totally fair.
Was already showing a step forward with his ability to hit baseballs, his plate discipline, his ability to recognize pitches. It looked like he was putting everything together. Like, he was on the same team as Gutierrez, and I really like Anthony Gutierrez, but watching the first 20 some games of him, you could tell that he was more of probably the most advanced hitter on that team. I forget if it was a leg injury or an arm injury that ended his season, but he was already at 12 stolen bases in 37 games, plus hitting over 270. This could potentially be a breakout for next year too.
I was just gonna ask.
We have not seen him on a full season yet. I didn't include him on this list just for everyone listening, but I really like Morabel, and he is really cheap. So I'd probably stash him in Dynasty very quickly before people catch on.
Interesting. So even when you might miss, there's still reason to be optimistic, and maybe Yaison Morabel will be a breakout this year. Now, this next guy, I almost don't even want to let you talk about him, Vinny. I know you love him. He was absolutely a breakout. The exit velocities on this guy, quite impressive. Moises Ballesteros, Vinny. I'm telling you, Vinny, we got to speed run this so we can get to our 2024 breakouts. But go ahead, tell everyone about your favorite Cubs prospects.
And it's kind of funny because if you listen to my breakout, my reasoning behind his breakout, it was completely wrong. I believed that Ballesteros was going to stop being this contact oriented hitter and start selling out for power, but he did not do that at all. He perfectly blended it together and became a top 5 prospect according to Baseball America now in the Cubs system.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But a little sprinkle on top of that, Kylie McDaniels, who works for Marquee Network, it's the Cubs like news network. They have like their own TV network. She was hearing stuff from other organizations, people in other organizations that view Moises Ballesteros as a top 50 prospect. So if there's legitimacy to that, he's severely underrated. We're talking about plus hit, potential plus power if he starts filling out his body and putting on good weight. The only really question mark around him is where he plays in the field. Like, I think he's solid enough to stay a catcher, but I believe they're trying to put him at first base, but the bat's legit, and I'll take the bat.
So if he's borderline top 50 prospect, he's rostered in 23% of leagues, probably still a little undervalued. Honestly, I was rostering him. I ended up moving him for a person or to an owner that valued him even more than I did. But I can tell you for sure that he is undervalued. I had almost no one asking about him when he was arguably one of my best prospects. I'm in a 30-team league, and very few managers were asking about him when, in my opinion, everyone should have been asking about his availability. All right, Vinny. Let's do these next four rather quickly. You take me through. You tell me which ones you think you hit on, which you think you missed on.
Well, I'll go with my biggest swing and miss. It's Wilderd Patino of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know. Maybe I just got too excited into looking into Jonathan Clase's 2022, and then saw a very similar 2022 with Patino, and was hoping for a step forward with the bat. Never happened. The speed stayed there. He, last year was 67 stolen bases, followed up this year with, what was it, 54? Just I was hoping for the power to take a step forward. It never did, and the hit tool actually stayed the same, maybe regressed a little bit. So I'll take that one as a swing and a miss. But still, the speed's interesting and the defense is interesting, but not enough for to roster in Dynasty.
He's actually rostered in 2 times the number of leagues than Morabel is rostered in. So maybe Morabel is even as someone who was injured, very, very underrated if he's under the levels of Wilderd Patino. How about Hendry Mendez of the Phillies?
Man, he's going to be one of these guys that if you look at his stats, he's never going to shine. But if you look at the underlying stats, he's absolutely mind-blowing. We saw him this year take a step forward at the plate. The second half of the season, started hitting the ball more, getting more loft in his swing, more extra base hits, followed that into the fall league. Plate discipline's still a little sketchy. Pitch recognition still a little sketchy, but he was good enough that the Phillies went out and traded for him. I think 3 days ago. He was in the Oliver Dunn, Robert Moore trade to the Phillies, but he's been younger than every single level he's played at, 20 years old. A little funny stat here, him and Luis Lara, who's another hyped up outfield prospect in the Brewers organization, are only a year and 2 days apart, and they were playing pretty much in the same league. So I don't know. He's one of these guys that you got to keep tabs on just because of how young he is and what we're seeing, and he's not done developing. So he's one of these guys to look and watch. I don't think he was good enough for me to say he was a good breakout pick, but he's still young.
What about J.R. Ritchie of the Atlanta Braves?
Man, he was off to a hot start. His season ended after, let's see, I think 5 games. He had to get Tommy John, but he led the Carolina League, I think, in K9. He had 25 Ks and 13.1 innings with a 105 whip, but a 5.40 ERA. But my reasoning behind him still stands that I have last year. This kid is electric, plus slider, plus fastball. They cleaned up the delivery and his oh my goodness, I can't think, but they cleaned up his whole entire delivery, arm angle, everything like that. Looked more refined this year. If he doesn't get Tommy John, there's a world that he's inside the top 10 right now, or inside the top 5 for the Braves. The Braves love these slider fastball guys, and I still think there's a lot of high upside with him.
All right, final guy on the list, member of Craig Breslow's team. I guess that's because Breslow left. But Luke Little, another Cub here, your favorite org. Still like Luke Little?
Yeah, Luke Little, man. Saw him last year. They were trying so bad to keep him a starting pitcher. He got called up to High South Bend, finished out the year as starter there, went up to AA next year, and was converted to the bullpen, and then blew through the minors. It's very rare you see a left-handed relief pitcher that throws 100 with 3+ pitches. So it's I understand why they did it, and he got called up this year and was very good in his 3 appearances. So I'll take that as a hit. So he wasn't a starting pitcher.
He made the majors. It might have been as a relief pitcher, but
yeah,
he made
we've yet to see a huge sample size from him too. So he might not be a breakout for Dynasty. He could be a redraft darling next year, depending on what they do in the offseason, because there's a lot of spots left in that rotation, especially in the bullpen too. We're cleaning house. We're cleaning house and pretty much seeing what we're going to move around Ohtani, hopefully, in this next couple of weeks. But yeah, Luke Little has a scary arsenal for a relief pitcher that you don't see very often.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now. 12 Ks and 6.2 innings in the majors. That is a small sample, but 12 Ks, 6.2 innings for a guy who blew through the entire minors last year. Nothing to scoff at. All right, Vinny. Well, you told me when we were coming into this that you had a 60% hit rate, but based on the way you just described everyone, it seems like maybe it was closer to a 90% hit rate. Let's see, how many guys do you have on the list? 9 guys. It sounded like you still liked 8 of the 9, which that puts you at 89%.
Yeah, but I counted the ones that got hurt as losses because technically they did not break out. So, I mean, if you want to have a technicality, it's more like it's more like an 85. But
don't you know when if you make a bet on a let's say random baseball game and the pitcher gets injured in the first inning and you lose, that's not a loss. Can't count that as a loss. You can't factor that into your analysis. All right, Vinny, let's get into our 2024 breakouts. I'm excited for this because we know Vinny's going to bring the heat, but Vinny asked me to bring some of my breakout picks. I have far less of an idea of what I'm doing, but I got to play analyst a little bit here. And what we're going to do is Vinny's going to share an actual breakout pick. And you should listen to that. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to share one of mine. I have 5 guys. Vinny has 6. And Vinny is going to tell me why I am wrong, if I'm wrong. But we'll see. We'll see. So, Vinny, why don't we start with your first guy, an actual breakout for the 2024 season? Who you got?
Okay, my first guy, if you've been listening to the show, I have actually mentioned before a few episodes ago, but it is the 16-year-old shortstop in the Atlanta Braves organization, Mario Baez. Man,
yes,
let me tell you.
When you mentioned him, Vinny, because you put his name in the graphic is Morrow. And then I said Morrow, and you're like, you idiot. Tricked you. You got me good.
Oh, man, let me tell you, this kid, there's little bit of footage out there to see of him, but matching up the footage to the stats, this kid's going to be big. I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year because he's very young, but it's a big, strong one. They have him listed at like 175. He looks like he's probably pushing 190 now. 5'9". I hate going off of the weight and height stats of everywhere.
I hate to interrupt you, Vinny. 5'9" and pushing 190. Is he going to stick at shortstop?
That's where I was heading.
Okay.
I don't think it's accurate anymore. He looks like he's probably now 6 foot, maybe 6'1".
Okay.
Like there's still projection in this body, and we don't know. Like he could come in this year with a growth spurt. He just turned 17, like less than 2 months ago. So he shows to have a very good eye at the plate. We're talking about a 9%, almost a 10% walk rate to a walk rate to a 12% K rate. A 346 BABIP, like he shows the ability to hit baseballs. He has a good feel for hit, decent, eye at the plate, good discipline. The defense looks very sound too, even for him being a quote unquote small statured guy. But man, if he puts on some weight this year in this off season, there's a potential that he could easily just blow up next year. And we're talking him like similar to like I don't want to say Sebastian Walcott, but like a kind of like a Marco Luciano a couple years ago. Came through later in the season during Complex and absolutely blew up. So I don't know, like 3 home runs for a 16-year-old that's under 180 pounds. That's something to really keep an eye on. And then he continued hitting all through the season. I'm surprised we didn't see him get the bump to the Florida Complex League, but he will probably be starting there next year, 17, and he could be potentially an A-ball later next year at 17 years old. So there's a lot to like about him.
Starting us off with an absolute bang. He's 0% rostered in tracks. I've added him to my watch list, which is a big deal because we just reset our league. So he's the first member of my watch list.
Yeah, I'll tell. There's a little technicality with that because I do have him rostered in a very deep dynasty, so it is not 0%.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it's 0.4%, it will show as 0% in tracks. I'm in this is a pretty deep league I'm in as well. He's not rostered. It's 30 teams. Each team rosters 20 prospects. And during the offseason, even more prospects than that. So pretty deep league here. I don't, yours might be deeper than that. Anything past 30 teams though, Vinny, is it more than that?
We have 50, I'm pretty sure. This is a
How's
prospect.
that even fun?
It's a prospect. It's a league ran by Prospects 1500s. Scott Green. It's we basically drafted everyone as minor leaguers, and then as they got called up, we started filling rosters. So we've been doing this for like 2 years now. But yeah, like I kind of like that. It's pretty interesting. You know, it really messes with your draft strategy. You're like, hey, okay, do I want to reach for guys that are going to play this year and win, or do we want to sit back and wait on a couple guys and be a monster next year or something like that? So it's very strategic.
Well, you've taken the breakout pretty extreme here and picked a guy that obviously not many people are talking about. I'm gonna start. I ordered my 5 guys from the most rostered on tracks to the least rostered, and this guy right now he's rostered in 19% of leagues. Which honestly I think is an underrepresentation because he's a first-year player guy, which means as more leagues draft, his roster percentage will go up. But I still think when I'm thinking of a breakout, and I know the definition of a breakout is kind of it's not very exact and everyone interprets it differently. The way I specifically interpret it, and we might be different in this regard, Vinny, but I'm trying to find a guy that I just think will be valued more by the time I am done with him than by the time I pick him up. So a guy could be 90% rostered, and if I think he should be 100% rostered in a way, that is a breakout to me. Now, in this case, we're dealing with a guy who's rostered 19% of leagues. I already said he's first-year player draft guy, and he's the reason I am dressed and what I am dressed today, if you're watching, which is the high school I coached for's gear. I've got our hat on, and I've got one of our sweaters on. And that's because we never got to face this guy this year. We have faced him in the past, but he plays at our level in Colorado, 3A. His name's Walker Martin. Vinny, are you familiar with Walker Martin?
Yes, very familiar with Walker Martin.
Very. Okay. I've got some reasons I want to explain why I think he's a breakout. So I don't think there's really any debating the pedigree of this kid. I think most people would tell you he was a first round quality player. He was taken in the second round, but he was given, let's see, I've got it written down here, 2.99. So let's call it $3 million in the second round when slot was 1.62 million. So he was given over a slot as if he was valued as a first round player. I don't think that is really the debate, and I think people realize that. I do think him dropping to the second round may suppress his roster percentage a little bit, but I think what could be suppressing it even further is this guy has no minor league stats yet. He, for whatever reason, did not play after he got drafted, so no one's seen this play, which means he's going to be forgotten about a little bit. But I'm telling you, this guy is an absolute stud. So just some notes I have on him. He was a two-way star. It was 3A at Eaton High School in Colorado. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Eaton, this is a football and baseball powerhouse, and it is in Colorado, but Austin Eckler, for example, went to Eaton. They are one of our rivals, more specifically in football, because we don't hold a candle to them in baseball. But they are one of our rivals. But because he was a two-part sports star and one of the best athletes in the class, he went a little overlooked early on in the recruiting process just because he wasn't playing in as many showcases as other guys were, people who were playing baseball year round. Because at that point, I mean, he was that good at football. He was the quarterback of the Eaton High School team. So gets a little overlooked. But then he starts to make some noise. He goes on, I don't remember exactly what showcase tour he went on. And he played a little, and scouts started to take note of him. At this point, his stock raises a ton, but he's still only considered about a third round quality prospect, maybe second round by the guys who like him the most. But the question for him became, yes, but what about the power? What about the in-game power? And boy, did Walker Martin answer the questions about his power, because he went on in his senior year of high school to hit 20 home runs, which led the nation. Yes, it was in Colorado, but the thing you got to remember, yes, it's at high altitude, but Colorado plays a lot less baseball than a lot of schools in big baseball states because they can't play as many games. So he hit 20 home runs in 79 plate appearance, or 79 at bats. He had a lot more plate appearances because he got intentionally walked quite a bit, but leads the nation in home runs, hitting one in over a quarter of his at bats, which is just completely ridiculous. Elevates his draft stock to a first round talent. And if you don't trust my word for it, I'm in this, I'm going to name drop a little bit here. I'm in a Survivor fantasy group, like the TV show Survivor on CBS. I'm in a group with Chris Clegg and Drew Wheeler, and I was giving them my breakouts, and each of them said their favorite guy on my list was Walker Martin. And Clegg said the questions that he had about his power are just mind boggle him, because he had 99 percentile exit velocity on that tour he played on, and he has I think I want to say it was 80 mile an hour. Let me check. Yes, Clegg said it was 80 miles per hour on his swing, which obviously is elite. So Clegg likes him. Vinny, is this a good pick by me?
Yeah, that is actually a very good pick, because I covered a lot of draft this year. I don't know why, like more than usual this year. But Martin was one of these guys that started the year pretty under the radar. But as we got closer and closer, you kept on hearing like, "Oh, Walker Martin, does he solidify himself for the second?" And then as we got like, I don't know, like a week or two away, there was buzz that we could potentially see him in the teens. Like the power with him is arguably maybe the best of the prep class. I would even say it's better than Max Clark. I'm not a big believer in the Max Clark hype right now, but we'll see. He could prove me wrong. But man, like him hitting like watching him, he kind of gives off like early 2018 Nolan Gorman vibes, like very advanced power. We need to wait and see the hit tool kind of like catch up to the power. It's hard because I don't know if he sticks at shortstop.
My guess would be he won't. He is a tremendous athlete. Clegg also said he's the best. He was the best athlete in the entire class. I don't know if I completely agree with that, but he's up there, and that's obviously evident by him being a star football player as well. I don't know. I've seen him play shortstop. He doesn't look like an MLB shortstop to me, but also like, again, this was a kid people said, I don't know if I see the in-game power. And then he went and proved everyone wrong. And I don't know if I made it clear, but I'm not just liking this kid because he's from Colorado. He literally attends one of our rival schools. So it's hard for me to swallow that pride and mention him, but he's a great athlete. So I don't know if he sticks at shortstop. He's definitely athletic enough. I think it's maybe he doesn't have the just pure speed, but we'll see. I do want to keep us moving. We have quite a few more guys here, but it sounds like, Vinny, you like my first choice, and that makes sense because he's the highest rostered. Yeah. But why don't you give us your next breakout?
All right, my next one is Kevin Castillo of the Los Angeles Angels, another name I have mentioned before in the call-up. Man, let me tell you, like, this is how I started to get onto the Nelson Rada train last year, a 16-year-old destroying the Dominican Summer League. This one's different because he spent most of the year at 17. But statistically speaking, Kevin Castillo right now is like the best Dominican Summer League player the Angels have ever had. Showed the ability to absolutely barrel baseballs. It was hard, consistent contact, a nice left-handed swing with loft. The body is projectable. Like everything you're looking for just a high upside type of outfield hitting prospect, he checks all the boxes. And then on top of that, like watching like the DSL is pretty interesting because I feel like for them being affiliated with teams and all this stuff, like I don't see a lot of footage trickle out if you're not getting it from like a team source. Like you very rarely find like maybe a clip on Twitter, or if you dig down, you can find some footage from when they were throwing out footage for the J15 class. But Castillo, if we're really going to break down his stuff, it's to the point where you could argue it was Dominican Summer League pitching, but to the extent of how he was destroying it is pretty mind-boggling. Here, let me pull up some of the, like, a 490 WOBA, a 549 slug, a 478 OBP, a 371 average, a 171 WRC plus, 15.4% K rate to a 17.1% walk rate. On top of that, 3 home runs, 23 stolen bases, and 10 doubles, 3 triples, or 7 triples, my bad. Like, the triples are intangibles. You really can't project them out. It just shows that he's very speedy, especially with the 23 stolen bases. But, you know, the home runs and the doubles really tell a story. And then how he, to sum it up, he destroyed the Dominican Summer League pitching to a point where I don't think it's a fluke at all. And, you know, we're going to probably see him. Yeah, I'm not confident we see him at the complex next year because of what they did with Rada this year and sent him straight to low A. So there's a potential we see him at low A to start the year next year, which I guarantee you he's like under probably 3% rate, like rostered in Fantrax, maybe even not in a point besides me. But like, oh man, if this is the type of guy that goes off next year and just flies up prospect lists.
Adding him to the watch list. I've now got a watch list of 2, both your breakouts. He's rostering a little more leagues than your last guy, 2%. But together, you're at 2%. I've picked one guy. I'm at 19%. So you're definitely playing on expert mode so far. But I know you got at least one guy in there.
I have 2 guys there's 2 guys that are probably gonna be pretty decently.
Yeah, rostered. You're making me look silly. We're going in the opposite directions, I think. I'm gonna go with my next guy, and I just told you about Walker Martin, who I think people might be forgetting because they have no stats for him, and so he might be falling a little more, and thus is undervalued, and thus posed for a breakout. This is a guy I'm gonna say up front, overvalued, entirely overvalued. I don't know what I'll say. He's already over rostered. He's also rostered in 19% of leagues. I really don't think talent-wise it's justifiable yet. However, I'm still picking him as my breakout. And that is Yordany Monegro of the Boston Red Sox. He's a pitcher. Now, let me explain why. This guy is going to be a hype machine. For starters, Red Sox are, you know, we just went and got Craig Breslow. Oh, sorry, I'm not a Red Sox fan anymore. They just in a Freudian slip, let's say. I'm a Yankees fan now. But they went and got out they sent Heim Bloom away. They said, your pitching development sucks. You got like the 17th best farm system for pitchers. That's not going to cut it. The major league pitching is not getting the job done. I kind of disagree. I think the defense, whatever. Anyways, they bring in Craig Breslow. Clear pitching emphasis. That right there is going to shift everyone's opinion of the Red Sox system. It's now being run by a pitching guy in Craig Breslow. So that's already going to bump up the perceived value of some of these top Red Sox pitching prospects. But here's the real reason. I'm gonna see. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to share my screen. Now I have a bunch of screens up. I have 3 monitors in my laptop. So, oh boy, they do not make this easy. Okay. Hopefully, Vinny, you will let me know. Is this sharing? It is. Okay, good. Yeah. We can see it. All right. This is Monegro, and this is the reason he's going to be an absolute hype machine. It's because people are going to fall in love with this guy. You're going to see electric stuff, but look at this kid's demeanor. I'm going to play this video right here. We can get a taste of it. 50 seconds. Just watch the swag. Just watch the swag here. I mean, this is the type of pitcher, modern game. He's got, I mean, what? Pitching ninja. He loves good stuff. Kid obviously has, just see it, but he loves the K-strut more. This is a guy that's going to get attention. He's going to get overhyped. So I'm calling him a breakout because his value is going to skyrocket as more and more people see him and see him pitch well. He does pitch well. And I'm going to then capitalize on this kid's value. I have no long-term plans for him. I have exclusively short-term. I'm going to trade him after the breakout continues. Vinny, what do you think of my pick here? A little bit unusual pick here because I'm telling you he's overvalued. Yordany Monegro.
I've heard about Yordany this year. I've done like little itty bitty dives into him, but I will say the one takeaway I do have from watching footage of him is he reminds me a lot of Luis Patino, like a name that kind of fizzled out very quickly
but
with the
had
Rays.
some hype though. You got to
That had a lot of
capitalize.
hype.
Yes.
The one thing to really watch is, the fastball is all of his pitches are average except that curveball. That curveball is,
Yes. The fastball looks good to the untrained eye, which is why he'll get overhyped.
But
the curveball is elite. You're correct.
If you look around at all the publications, like you see like a 55 curve, but actually looking and watching how hitters perceive it, I would say it's a six pitch. Like he gets most of his strikeouts on that curve. Like that is his that's his deal stealer right there.
It's his every pitch. It's
his
whole approach.
He pairs it really well with all of his other solid offerings that arguably probably make them a little better, a little elevated. The command has been shaky at times, but he's 21. There's still a lot of time. And now that I will tell you, with Breslow coming to the Red Sox as a Cubs fan, this could be a guy that completely just goes nuclear next year, because
that's what I'm saying. Every sign is pointing to nuclear breakout.
They have really refined. He really refined our pitching in our system to a point where some would argue we have maybe a top 10 pitching organization in baseball now. So yeah, like this is a kid that with Breslow, with the pitch, with projection, like this is a guy who could absolutely go crazy next year. Like it's not out of the question.
Yeah, he's going to go crazy. He is a pitching prospect, which is why I think you got to capitalize. The reason I know he is a little overvalued, the real best pitching prospect in the Red Sox system, who has a closer proximity to the majors, is only rostered in 10% of leagues. That's Luis Perales. That's the guy you actually want. That's the actual breakout. That's the guy you pick and you keep. This is the guy you pick and you trade. But Vinny, I'll let you go. I'll let you go with your next guy. I'm done talking Red Sox.
All right. My next one is going to be Braylon Morrell of the Texas Rangers. Let me tell you. Okay. Like I kept my eye on the DSL box scores all season. Man, when the footage started coming out of this kid, I started to lose my mind. We are talking about a 17-year-old that is standing at 6'2", 180. And is a very young 17. He will probably, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he will play most of next year at 17. Let's see if I can send you the clip, or maybe not. Yeah. This is probably, I've seen, like Vlad Guerrero, I've seen Lewin Diaz at his height. I've seen a bunch of power hitters through my time of watching minor league baseball, especially in person. This might be the easiest raw power I think I might have ever seen. Like the amount of thump that he puts into baseballs. I know it's DSL pitching, and this will probably come back to bite me really hard next year just because it's DSL pitching, but the way the ball jumps off of the bat is just, it almost feels like every at bat for him is like a home run derby. It really tells in the stats too, with a 24% K rate. But man, is this, it's so fun to watch that it's like, if he puts everything together, he is like the next Jackson Churio. Like it's to that point. I just sent you the clip on Twitter. Let's see if you can pull it up from the Rangers.
I'm not logged into my Twitter.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm on my, I explained this to you earlier. I'm on my work laptop because it runs smoother. So I can't log into Twitter on my work laptop.
All right, let's take a second here. Let's see if I can.
I can try and send it to myself if you want to keep talking.
Yeah, but yeah, let's see. I broke down. I tried to find stuff to just absolutely poke holes on this kid to make me come back down to reality, and I really just couldn't. Like DSL, 17-year-old, 300 ISO. 444 BABIP, 344 average, 417 OBP, 644 slug, 485 WOBA, 168 WRC plus, a 36% ground ball rate to a 22% line drive rate, and a 41.7% fly ball rate. He is a pull killer of a hitter. But man, like I said, a 17-year-old standing at 6'2", 180, he's not done growing. He still has 2 or 3 more years of development still left in that body. And just look at the presence of him in that plate. Like, he ambushes and absolutely just kills baseball.
I don't know if the sound was coming through when I'm sharing it.
It's not, but let me tell you.
Oh, it sounds good.
Please go give him a watch, because watching this, I lost my mind, and you can hear it now. I'm losing my mind still.
He's got that swag too that I think people will just tend to like.
He has that kind of J-Rod kind of swag to him too,
yeah.
which is.
I don't like that he's a righty, but I like him. He's a guy, Vinny. I don't mean to cut you off again, but we got to keep this moving. But smart people I have seen say his name, because I have a note that Dylan White likes him from his Robo Scout from Baseball America. So the scout, so you see, he passes the eye test. Dylan White likes him. That means he passes the stats test as well. I cannot figure out how to unshare my screen. There we go. All right, moving to my next guy, let's see. I meant to see how rostered he was.
He's probably pretty highly rostered now once we're in the off season.
I can't even find him. I am now looking at all my watch lists from last year because he's on that list. There he is. Now he's 0%. So
that's underrated. Go pick him up immediately as you're listening to this right now.
Do it. All right. Here's my guy. This is a guy who used to be 0%. We talked about him 2 weeks ago, Vinny, and I'm going to go through my same spiel that I went through with you. He's now up to 6% roster, but I'm going to stick with him. And that's Jansel Luis of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. This is the process, and you know this. I've already went through this spiel with you. But I went to Fangraphs, and I filtered on their prospect board. I wanted above 50 grade hit tool, raw power, game power, and speed. Those are kind of the fantasy skill tool shed. Those are the fantasy skills we're looking for. So I wanted those guys. And then I went to Scout the Stat Line, another great database source.
Ross Jensen. Yeah.
Ross Jensen, thank you. Make sure to give his site a look. It is worth the small. It's way too cheap of a subscription fee, but it's really worth it. They're on to guys all the time early there, but I went to his list and took prospects ranked in the top 150. So basically guys that the scouts love for their fantasy tools and the guys that the stats nerds like Ross love. And here's who I came up with the list. Here's to prove that this is a good list. The top of the list: Jackson Holiday, Wyatt Langford, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Roman Anthony. Consensus, we talked about it last time, Vinny. Consensus, top 20 guys, top 15, top 10, depends on the list. Consensus, top guys. Next tier of guys on the list: Drew Gilbert, James Triantos, Cole Young. Emerging guys. I know, Vinny, you don't, I think it's Triantos you don't necessarily like, but these are guys you'll find in the top 100 on certain lists. Next tier of guys, these are when we're starting to get into the breakout list. And actually there's a guy, Vinny, that I think you're going to be talking about in this next tier. There's Carlos Jorge, Brian Ramos, Jason Cherio, and Dylan Head. I'm not going to say which one Vinny's going to pick, but one of those guys, Vinny's nodding his head.
If you're a frequent listener to the show, you already know, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting note here, Vinny. When we talked about this last time, Brian Ramos, 16% rostered, had a great AFL. He's now 26% rostered. Breakout list. I'm telling you guys on here. The lowest rostered guy on the list, the last guy to make the list, Jansel Luis. He's in really strong company here. He's only 6% rostered. I'm taking a shot on this kid who's passing both the scout test and the stat test. Do you like Luis?
Yes. I actually had no clue about Luis until I saw Alex Jensen. That is like his guy. I'm pretty sure he called him as my guy this year. Man, like I really like Christopher Torrin. He didn't make my breakouts list because I feel like there's
I like Torrin as well.
Big names, but oh man, Luis. Like I am kind of stan the Diamondbacks because I used to go see. They used to be my closest minor league affiliate up in Kane County. But man, like watching him, he kind of gives off like Geraldo Perdomo vibes right now. But you can definitely see in his body and his swing, like there is power, and plus he's a switch hitter. Like,
Vinny's vibes. He looks at the kid. And he's like, I see a future guy who can play decent defense and will just bunt every time it
yeah,
matters.
I'm not talking about future projection. I'm just talking about like projecting the body of what I
Okay.
saw at the same time, kind of compared the levels. But man, he is a scary talent. Like, I don't think they've really had a lower level infielder like Luis this hyped up since probably like Livero Peguero, and that was a couple years ago before they traded him to the Pirates. But man, like I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of fizzled when he got called up to
I mean,
Visalia. But
fizzled.
when,
I think he's had very few ABs there.
yeah, I think let's see, he had 36 at bats, 257, 310, 417 slash,
But
the
what's his
4 home
age?
runs.
Age to level. Yeah. He's what is that,
Yeah,
like a
he's 18.
97? So
Yeah,
what's the
like he,
WRC plus?
hold on, I'm on.
95. I was
Yeah,
close. 95 at 18 at low A. That's not fizzling out.
like not that he fizzled, but I'm talking like to the level of production he was doing at the complex league. He came back down to earth and started to, adjust to high A pitching, but it wasn't a long enough sample size. Like, this is a guy that could easily, he's probably going to I would guess he probably repeats next year at Visalia. This is a
Yes.
guy that could easily, we're talking probably maybe the next big Diamondbacks prospect. It's either between him, Torin, or Tommy Troy. So
I like all three. Why not all? Why not all?
yeah, why not all of them? Maybe Drew Jones actually does something this year too.
All
Stays
right.
healthy.
Well, Vinny, it sounds like I might be 3 for 3, but we got to keep things moving. Who's your next guy on the list?
Well, you teased it a couple
Okay.
minutes ago. My next one is Dylan Head, outfielder for the San Diego
Also on that list I
Padres.
gave. I'm
Also
already
on
in.
that
On the
list.
list. I'm in.
When I did all of every year, we're getting to the same time. Like the year before the drafts, everything, I look at like the best, prospects in the state I live in of Illinois. Dylan Head was number one, no doubt about it. Like, I had questions about him watching him at like previous events leading up to this year. I saw this kid in person this year and was absolutely blown away. Like, we're talking about contact, speed. The body is a very strong, like a very strong upper body, very strong lower body. Like, the body build is similar to a Wander Franco-esque, like a very muscular, just smooth swinging player. But this kid, man, he has some pop. Like, it's gonna probably take a little bit to get into the pop, but I'm not ruling out like 20 home run type of power with him. The speed is 80 grade elite, probably the best speed in the class. I know, talking with people coming into the draft this year, there was teams that viewed him higher than like Enrique Bradfield of the Baltimore Orioles, like similar profiles, but he was the high school version with more upside and arguably a little bit more speed. We saw him come out this year in the Cal League, Lake Elsinore, and man, did he started off really slow, but he adjusted very quickly to the low A pitching and just really torched going into the playoffs. Like, man, I don't know. Like, seeing him in person gave me eerily similar vibes to like a Corbin Carroll, if we're talking body projection and just same kind of feel. But then watching him run was like, why? Like, I forgot I was sitting next to a scout and he timed him on a triple. It was like, I can't remember, but it was like 1.2 seconds or something like that. I might be completely butchering this. I'll have to go back and watch video. I have video on my Twitter if you want to go and look for it.
I mean, obviously he didn't go home to third in 1.2
Yeah,
seconds.
that's what I'm saying. I can't remember the number, but it was something to the point where everyone just like looked at each other and was like, wow, this kid is unreal. But like,
Well, I'm excited for him, Vinny.
I'm
I
super
think
excited for him too.
this is officially, though, now the highest rostered guy one of us has picked. So boom. I'm not the only one playing on easy mode now.
Yeah.
But Dylan had another first year player draft guy, right? So
yeah, I won't dig too much into him because I want to talk a lot about him going when we do our first year player drafts, but he's going severely underdraft in those right now.
Okay, well, how about I go then with my next guy who's also a first year player draft guy? But he is currently in these first year player draft guys, their roster percentage will rise. He's only rostered in 2% of leagues right now. And it might be because he was drafted in the 7th round by an organization that is awful. It's Trevor Werner of the Kansas City Royals. And okay, before I go on, I must say this is going to be a controversial thing. Going back to Dylan Head, his parents spelled his name wrong. So if you're looking for him, it's Dillon. That is not how you spell Dylan in my mind. I don't care how controversial that is, but that's how you find it. It's Head spelled normally, but Dillon. The reason I'm saying that because I'm looking at Trevor Werner's name and his last name spelled Werner. Kansas City Royal. All right. First year player guy drafted out of Texas A&M, I want to say. A college in Texas, let's just say that.
Yeah.
Where he went on to put absolutely elite exit velos. However, and why he fell in the draft. And when I say elite exit velos, I'm not just talking like average exit velocity. I'm talking like 90th percentile exit velo, which has been kind of proven to be the more predictive stat to look at when you're trying to project someone's power. But I want to say in college, his was 107 miles per hour. That's the number that sticks in my head. But he had some poor contact in college. I think he struck out 26% of the time is the number in my head, which if it was in the minors isn't necessarily concerning, but at a level where he should be dominating as a future prospect, that type of strikeout rate and his contact rates were a little concerning. So he falls to the 7th round. The Royals take him. Well, he ends up making it to low A. I think he may have played like 4 games in a complex league before they were like, all right, this guy way too good for this level. Let's send him up to low A. And low A dropped his K rate to 23%, much more respectable. His contact rates elevated to an above average level. I think I saw in Baseball America 1 standard deviation above average contact rates. His profile is looking entirely different now. He's keeping the 90th percentile exit velo. It's now up to 108 miles per hour at low A. He hits 8 home runs in a short time there and steals 8 bags. I think this dude might be an absolute steal for the Royals and probably their next. I mean, Vinny P, is that too high of praise? He's way faster than Vinny P. So I don't know. What do you think, Vinny?
That's kind of funny you bring this guy up because I actually know who he is. This guy, I watched a little bit of him towards the end of the season in the Carolina League. He destroyed the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, which is the Cubs low A affiliate. Like they could not get this kid out. Like he is so good at just getting the ball in play and just having tough at bats. Like this is one of these guys that we go back, a year later and we're like, wow, why the hell was he in the 7th round? Or like, why is he so late going undrafted? Like the bat's pretty special with him. And, if he can get the defense up to just solid, like this is a nice, solid everyday guy. Like, and it's a guy definitely worth taking a risk on.
And I will say, I will clarify, I don't mean to comp him to Vinny P as a style of player. I mean similar breakout level, just because it's the easy pick when he's in the Royals organization. But a guy who's putting up really good numbers and people like, yeah, okay, and then eventually people are just like, all right, he's a top prospect. I can see Vinny's not as convinced, but I love the power, I love the athleticism and the speed. I think he's a guy that could. I think when I'm talking about the steals, maybe the best case scenario is like 10 steals, but that's not nothing for a corner infielder who's going to be a power first guy. Remember, 108 miles per hour, 90th percentile exit velo is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
above average contact rates. What more do you want in a prospect? All right, Vinny, I've talked enough. Who's your next prospect?
My next one is former Miami Marlins shortstop traded in the David Robertson trade, Marco Vargas. When I look in, I think I may have talked about him earlier this year. I don't know if I have. If we're talking about just a guy that pops off the screen when you're watching someone, it is Marco Vargas. Easily, probably. Like looking at their system, he's up there probably in the top 3 with just best pure hit tools in the system of the Mets. Like they have Acuna Jr., they have Gilbert, they have Williams. He's up there. Like honestly, I think he might be a little underranked looking at all of the you know,
Yeah, only 6% rostered.
The advanced stats of what he did at the complex, and then his little stint in low A this year. We're talking about a let's start here. We're talking about a 17.5% walk rate on top of a 23.5% walk rate when coming from the Marlins. A sub 20% strike rate until it's a little short sample size in low A, but it was still a 16.5 to a 22% K to walk rate. 421 BABIP, 309 average, 419 OBP, 308 slug, 371 WOBA, 115 WRC plus. Like, you can definitely tell this kid is like on the cusp of just a massive 2024. It is a smaller body currently right now at 6 foot 170. He is 18 years old and he's 6 months into his 18th birthday. So he'll probably spend like a month or two next year at being 18 at low A. But I'm telling you, like, watching this kid hit baseballs, like, the hit tool is legit. It's just absolutely legit with this kid. The big unlocking question for him is power. Is if the power will come. The body's still young. Like, we could be talking. I feel like I've said this almost besides like 2 players this year, but like, if he comes in with a bigger body and some more muscle, like, the swing is lofty enough and he gets under the ball, and you pair that with a 60 hit tool, he's gonna find home runs. It just depends on how many. He's probably gonna be ran out as a shortstop his whole entire minor league career, but I don't know if that's where he ends up with the Mets just because of how loaded they are. He might be one of these guys we see get moved, you know, at the deadline or something like the next couple of years. Because he is, you know, being in the same system as Luis Acuna and Jet Williams is not good for your future with the team. But he's interesting to probably another team massively just because of the 60 hit tool. But like, if there's one thing I always want to bet on with prospects, it is hit tool. If you have the hit, you can't teach the hit tool. You can learn or, get lucky into power, but the hit tool is something you can't learn. And he is good at pitch recognition, good at being patient at the plate. He's a smart hitter. He doesn't just limit himself to like a slap to the left, and he's not a slap hitter. He doesn't limit himself to like left field, right field. He spreads it all across the field. Like, this is the type of guy you usually are not bitten on if you want to bet on him, but like, it's pretty solid. I'm most confident out of all these guys. I'm confident on Vargas.
Hate to break it to you, Vinny, but I will not be putting him on my watch list. But that's because he's already rostered. Yeah. I still like what you said. I like the call is a breakout. And just one other quick note. This is unrelated to Vargas, but because you mentioned him and we're talking about breakouts, all y'all out there who say Jet Williams is the breakout of the year, you can take Jet Williams, shove him up your butt. Roman Anthony was the breakout of the year, not Jet Williams. Jet Williams, number 2. Distant number 2, Roman Anthony, number 1. Thank you very much.
Throw some water on your fire, though. I would rather have Jet Williams than I would have Marcelo Meyer, though.
I don't care. I'm not a Red Sox fan
you
anymore. But you'd rather have Roman Anthony, right?
Oh, yeah. I'd rather have Roman Anthony than a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah.
But you're not a Red Sox fan.
No, I'm just Roman Anthony fan.
Okay.
I can keep some of my old loves. I think it's okay to like 1 or 2 Red Sox prospects as a Yankee fan, especially since Breslow's going to go in there and trade them all for bad pitching.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
You Darvish.
All right, my last guy, Vinny, and then I think you've got one last guy. I'm finally getting to my 0% rostered guy. I'm double checking, but I believe, yes, 0% rostered. It's Luis De Leon, starting pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. I really like this guy. I don't understand why he's 0% rostered. I'm not going to go out there and make a bold claim that he's a top 100 prospect, but I think he's quite good. And my analysis here is based on 2 facts, not facts, 2 things that I like. One, the profile and how he's performed. I always want to see him performing well, but also just the organization he's in, which, I don't know. Many people say the Baltimore Orioles, because they look at their MLB staff, they think they struggle with pitching. But Baseball America put out their organizational rankings for pitching, and the Orioles did come in 4th place overall in their best organizations of pitching talent. I don't think they were like measuring how good they are at developing pitching. They were just simply taking their top pitching prospects, one of whom I like to think is De Leon, and measuring up against every other system. And they said the Orioles come in fourth. The Orioles actually, though, ranked first in left-handed pitching, which De Leon also happens to be a left-handed pitcher. So he's in an organization that knows how to find pitching, knows how to develop pitching, and really knows left-handed pitching. So he checks those boxes. I already like his placement in the Orioles system. But more than that, I like what I see from him in his actual start. So he started the year at the Complex League. He had 6 starts there. He had an 11.85 K per 9. Decent. But what I really like is he had a 63% ground ball rate. The reason I like high ground ball rates, and I believe that would have ranked him 4th at the level, is you can just limit damage. You'll notice if you look at him, he's got a higher BABIP and a higher strand rate than you would expect, but that is part of the profile of being a ground ball pitcher. A guy that can generate balls hit into the ground and a guy that can generate swing and misses, I said 11.85 K per 9, is going to get good results. And that's why he had a 1.65 ERA at the Complex League. Now, here's where it gets better in my mind. He then gets called up to low A, where he makes 5 more additional starts. His K rate drops a little, as to be expected, goes to 10.59 K per 9, but his ground ball rate skyrockets. It was already 4th highest at the level. Skyrockets 73.4%. He's gotten better coaching now, higher up in their system, and his ground ball rate is even higher, 73.4%. Now, how high is that? It's tops in all of low A. It's tops. He has the best ground ball rate, 2.39 ERA as a result. He has some walk issues, but I trust the organization. I trust the profile of the pitcher being a guy that can miss bats and generate contact into the ground. To me, he's a safe bet at 0% rostered. I feel like he's a no-brainer breakout pick. What do you think, Vinny?
Yeah, I kind of like that. Like I use a similar kind of guide to finding pitching. I really love the ground ball rate just because it does limit damage. And I also like looking at left on base percentage too. But yeah, at this point, I don't think you can really go wrong with a Baltimore Orioles pitcher. Like we've seen so many of them, maybe not have starting pitching success, but like come up in the bullpen. Like I was huge on DL Hall. I thought he was at one point. I thought he was better than Grayson Rodriguez, which, well, there's still out to see who's better yet. But man, watching him in the playoffs this year as a relief pitcher, I'm excited for him this year. Like it's such a safe system that you can't go wrong with it.
I really can't believe that a renowned Yankees fan have gone with, I only went with 5 breakouts and somehow ended up with a Red Sox breakout, a shout out for Roman Anthony, and then a Baltimore Orioles breakout here in Luis De Leon, which is spelt like it sounds. That's my last guy. Vinny, you've got one last guy here.
Yes.
Who'd you save for last?
I saved Yopfri Rodriguez of the Milwaukee
Okay,
Brewers.
you're going to need to spell that name for sure. Yopfri?
Yophery Rodriguez. Man, like watching him and like looking at the stats, it's very similar to kind of the DSL performance of Emmanuel Rodriguez of 2021. Or was that 2022? Man, I don't know, man. My timelines are all messed up, but man, we're talking about a big 17-year-old kid with some big power and a very good ability to just absolutely throw the barrel at baseballs. Like it's almost a wiry, strong frame, kind of like not like height comparison to Kevin Alcantara, but like a similar muscle build of the upper body. The swing is weird though. Like it almost feels like there's a hitch in his swing, but he uses it to his advantage. And like, he's very good at spreading the ball around. Like there's very good opposite, like he's a very knowledgeable hitter and he knows how to play with the ball. My only concern with him is a 47.2% ground ball rate. Like that's a little sketchy, but if we look back at Emmanuel Rodriguez's 20 whatever year, he was a sub 100 hitter with a 50% ground ball rate with 12 home runs. We're talking about a guy who had 224 plate appearances at 17 years old, had 6 home runs, 13 doubles, 2 triples, and walked more than struck out with a sub 200 ISO. You really don't see that much. Like the 289 BABIP, okay, but like 393 OBP, 449 slug, 409 WOBA, 125 WRC plus. Like, and we've seen now a track record steadily of the Milwaukee Brewers developing these outfielders out of nowhere. Churio, Lara, Mendez, kind of, but man, I it's kind of hard to now bet against the Milwaukee Brewers and developing hitters. This kid might be a sneaky name going into next year just because his stats don't look as good as they should at the DSL. But watching him and just watching video of him, he screams upside.
I like what you're saying, but I still am stuck on this kid's name. How confident are you that it's pronounced Yapri? What'd you say?
Yapri?
Yapri? Yeah, it's spelled YOPHERY.
Yapri?
Yeah.
Yapri? I don't know. I can't find anyone like have a pronunciation of it. I found no one saying it.
Yeah, it's so hard with the young guys to find.
So I'm going with Yapri. So until I'm corrected, he's Yapri Rodriguez.
I like the call. I like the name. I think these it's a cool name. I think the unusual names, it sounds absurd, like absurd analysis, but I do think a name like Yapri Rodriguez, Yordani Monegro, those guys just get rostered because they're memorable names. And it does sound really stupid, but that matters in fantasy.
Yeah, like there's a really good ring to like Yapri Rodriguez, top 100 prospect. Like there's stuff like that too.
Yeah, and let me clarify. It doesn't matter for performance in fantasy, but it does matter for value. And I play the prospect game. I'm almost exclusively looking to trade the guys I pick up. I see very few make it through. Now, someone like I do have Roman Anthony. I just need to balance out by saying I also have like Henry Lalonde. Well, I don't know how to say it. Yankees pitcher. I have Chase Hampton. I have my Yankees, my favorite team, but I have Roman Anthony. He's the guy I'll probably see through. There's some guys you just can't trade, but for the most part, all this stuff factors in to evaluating a player. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do with our breakouts. Pick guys that we think are going to be valued more tomorrow than they are today. And I think we came up with a good list. What did we say, Vinny? Your hit rate was somewhere between 60%.
Yeah, it's like somewhere between
89% if you take out injuries. I like our picks. I don't see why we can't be even better than that.
Yeah, I'll never toot my own horn, but like these are the guys. If I like the guys, that's fine. Listen to me or don't listen to me.
Listen,
it's just my guy.
Listen. Nah, you gotta listen to Vinny. Listening to me is far more of a question, but you heard it. At least my first three guys, I could tell Vinny liked. I don't know if you liked the last two. I think you were a little bit interested in De Leon. I'm not sure how you felt about Werner, but so maybe don't listen to me, but you got my thoughts.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I remember Werner just because he just was killing my Cubs at low A.
So the truth is you don't want to like him because you that specific day you hated him.
Oh yeah, he was not fun to watch.
Yeah, it's hard to get over that. I remember when I became a Yankees fan, one of the hardest parts was like, and I still really can't do it, like talking myself into liking Derek Jeter. I don't know if I can ever do that because of the hatred I have from him from when he was playing against my team, and now he is the captain of my team. I mean, not anymore, but he was at some point. Like, how do I handle that? I don't know. It's hard.
Don't know. Just have to move on eventually.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe when he comes back to Yankee Stadium, I'll give him some applause. But he's a relic of the past when I didn't like the Yankees as much. But Vinny, that was our show. Those were our breakouts. We gave you 11 guys. I noticed your list last year, quite a long list, 9 guys. We have 11 this year. I think Vinny approved. I'm going to say Vinny approved 4 of my guys. So Vinny approved 10 guys. And we're going to count that on your record now.
Okay, that's fine.
Next year, we'll revisit when we do our breakouts next year, we'll revisit and we'll see. We'll revisit Trevor Werner and we'll see how good was he actually, or is he just a Cubs killer?
Yeah, he'll be interesting to watch. I'll have eyes on him this year at High Quad City, so I'll tell you how he is.
Yeah, can't wait to find out. Well, that is just the beginning of our off-season coverage here for Triple Play Fantasy and on the call up. As always, be sure to check out everything that Triple Play Fantasy has to offer. It has been a while since we last talked, but Vinny, I think you made an appearance on one of our other podcasts, didn't you?
Yeah, I was on the baseball second half breakout rookies last week.
So you want more Vinny? It was just last week. Okay. I wasn't sure because it has been way too long, but we'll be more consistent now about getting you guys good content. We're already talking about some guests and some plans we have for the off season. But be sure to follow us on YouTube. We showed some videos in the podcast. If you're listening, you're only getting 75% of the experience. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like whatever the people say. Of course, if you listen to on podcasts, we still appreciate that. But for Vinny, I'm Josh. Thank you for listening to the call up this week. We'll see you soon.